Hey, Dr. Dante here. I am at San Antonio Zoo's Center for Conservation and Research, and we've had a lot of questions about what's going on here at the center with the COVID-19 event unfolding. So we're all still here. We're working with the endangered and imperiled wildlife that we have in our care, making sure that everything is well cared for. The staff is putting in long hours to make sure that we can produce the live food that we need. We're making sure that all of the needs of the animals are met to the exact specifications that we've always had. And morale's high. You know, we are really clear on our mission. We know that the animals that we're working with need our help. They're in trouble in the wild, that's why they're here. And we're all dedicated to this. So I'm really proud of my staff and my team. They're putting in the effort and the time. We're making sure that nothing has changed with regard to the care and feeding of these things. And everybody's doing well. And I'm gonna walk you into a couple labs now to show you just how well I'm talking about. So we're in one of the labs here at the Center for Conservation and Research, and as most of you know from the local news, we bred for the first time ever in captivity the reticulated flatwoods salamander, and we're really excited about it. This is a critically endangered species. It's federally listed as an endangered species, and they're not doing well in the wild. So they're down to the last known really healthy population, and of all places, that's on Eglin Air Force Base. And one of the things I'd love to point out right now is just how good the Air Force has been with regard to being stewards of the land. They've taken such good care of their land that this population of salamanders still exists out there, and again, it's the last healthy population. So for over 10 years, my team and I have been working with these salamanders, trying to learn how to hatch them from eggs and rear them up, get them to adult size, and then breed them in captivity. And we've been able to do all of that now. And you can see these tanks behind me. That's where the 70 plus babies from this year's captive breeding, again, the first ever, are growing up. And I'm happy to say that those 70 are all happy and hungry. They're eating a ton every day. We hatch out little baby brine shrimp for them, which are orange in color. So we put the brine shrimp in, and the babies all kind of cluster around the brine shrimp. And when they're done, you can tell they've been eating because their bellies are bright orange from the shrimp. So you may or may not know that the San Antonio Zoo has a system of labs that are specially designed to care for subterranean wildlife. The study of subterranean wildlife is something that is in my academic background, and the other PhD on my team, Dr. Andy Glusenkamp, it is also in his background. So we do a lot of work with animals that spend all of their lives below ground. And we have developed a relationship with various state wildlife agencies and then the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And we're working with a lot of those subterranean species in our labs. A lot of those species are imperiled or endangered. And we've got a group of things here that are federally listed endangered species. This is the Ozark cavefish. We are the first team in the world that has been granted permits to work with this species in the lab. And we've got a group of them here. They are not necessarily doing well in the wild because of issues with groundwater, whether that's over-extraction or contamination of groundwater. They just don't do well in either circumstance. And our goal here is to learn how to keep them in captivity and then try to breed them in captivity. And if we're successful with both, we will produce husbandry and breeding protocols so that in the future, if that needed to be done on some sort of scaled up level, we could do that and not have to start from scratch. So a lot of our projects and programs here at San Antonio Zoo's Center for Conservation and Research focus on the development of husbandry and breeding protocols for species that have never been kept before in captivity, and the Ozark cavefish is a perfect example. So we're in another one of the labs that's specially designed to accommodate subterranean wildlife. In this particular lab, we deal with wildlife from the Floridan aquifer below the states of Florida and Georgia and Alabama. We're working with Doherty plain cave crayfish and Georgia blind salamanders. My team was the first to breed both of these species ever in captivity. Very proud of the team that I have. They've got some real accomplishments under their belt now. And both of these species in the wild are threatened by contamination of groundwater and also over-harvest of groundwater, or people pulling groundwater out at a rate where nature can't replenish it, so gradually drawing down the level of an aquifer. Should the wildlife authorities in any of those states require in the future husbandry and breeding protocols, we've been able to write those up for both of these species. And this is sort of the deliverable or the end product that we want to arrive to with all of our projects. We want to be able to tell wildlife authorities, these are the best practices for keeping species X in the lab, and this is how you get them to breed. Here are the triggers that you need to provide so that you can get those things to breed in captivity. And again, we've been able to do both the Georgia blind salamander and the Doherty plain cave crayfish in the lab. And those successes are really nice. They help with morale, and they help with, more than anything else, the future of these imperiled species in the wild. These are Texas horn lizards. This is one of the other local conservation projects that we have going here at San Antonio Zoo's Center for Conservation and Research. For the partners that we have, they have ranches that they are working with state wildlife biologists to return the vegetative community back to what it should be, open it up a little bit. For example, if you manage your land for quail, you're also managing for Texas horn lizards. They like it a little bit more opened up. We're working with these landowners, and we've developed what we lovingly call a lizard factory here at San Antonio Zoo's Center for Conservation and Research. And the idea is that we will produce thousands of baby lizards every season and start to learn about how to put animals back onto the landscape. You may or may not know that Texas horn lizards have vanished from roughly 40% of their traditional range in the state. That decline has been pretty steep. And if you think about it, there are a lot of different reasons. It's not just one reason. It's not just fire ants, but fire ants have contributed. It's not just the fact that we've developed all those open lots where lizards used to be found and turned them into strip malls and housing areas. It's not just the fact that there are feral cats out there. It's not just the fact that there are roads and dogs and all kinds of other things that contribute to the decline, but all of those factors have driven a decline. And a lot of people that grew up in Texas, this is as Texas-centric as wildlife gets. Everybody in Texas that grew up here knows what a Texas horn lizard is. And so this is something that a lot of landowners want back onto their property, and we're hoping to do exactly that. We've got a lot to learn. We've got to figure out what it is specifically that we need to do to put animals back onto the landscape. At what stage do you put them back? At what season do you put them back? Where do you put them back? There are a lot of questions that we need to address, and we're addressing those in a very scientific way. We're using the scientific method, and once we get all of that ironed out, we'll be sure to put guidelines out in a publication so that anybody can go ahead and follow this up and produce more Texas horn lizards. So Dr. Andy Glusenkamp manages this project for Texas horn lizards, and he and the team have done an amazing job in organizing and coordinating with private landowners and getting enough adults in here to start a breeding colony. That's a constant struggle to make sure that we have enough animals to produce the numbers that we need. And then they like to eat Texas red ants, so sometimes we need to go on out and collect red ants, and just keeping all of these things fed and healthy is a big job, and it requires a full-time crew But Dr. Glusenkamp has done the team has done just an amazing job. So we're in another one of the labs that is specifically designed to accommodate subterranean wildlife here at San Antonio Zoo's Center for Conservation Research. In this lab, we're working with a few things. One of them are Texas blind salamanders. That is another federally listed endangered species. And we have a research colony here. We work in collaboration with Edwards Aquifer Authority. They've been great partners on this project. And what we're trying to do is identify the specific triggers that get these salamanders to breed in captivity in the first place. So these salamanders have bred for many, many years on and off in captive circumstances, but nobody can tell you why they bred when they did. And we're after the triggers that get them to breed predictably in captivity so that if that's ever required in the future, groups of agencies that had them could get them to breed on command. So we're working on that. We're also looking at the genetics of wild salamanders and trying to figure out just how many you need to have in captive circumstances so that you can represent the diversity of wild genetics that exists out there. So we were lucky in that we were able to breed Texas blind salamanders in captivity for the first time in our labs just a few weeks back. And we have some of our babies in here. These are Mexican blind cats or blind catfish from an aquifer that straddles the border between the United States and Texas and Mexico. These are not doing well in the wild. They have a very limited range, and the reason I say they're not doing well, the aquifer that they live in has a brewery above it in Mexico, and they are lowering the level of the aquifer by the amount of water that they are extracting to make beer. So we are working on husbandry and breeding protocols, and we are hopeful that we will be able to breed this species in captivity. So I appreciate that you've taken the time today to go through our labs, our little virtual tour. You know now that we're working with some critically endangered and species and then some others that are imperiled. It takes a lot of time and effort to take care of these animals. It takes a lot of time to care for them and clean up after them and make sure that they have all of the appropriate circumstances and all of their needs are covered. These are the kinds of things that your visit in the past to San Antonio Zoo would have helped support. Now, during this COVID-19 episode, we don't have people coming in through the gates. We really rely on ticket sales at the gates and visitation of the zoo to cover all of our expenses, and we don't have any of that right now. So what I'm asking you for is some help. You know what we're doing here, at least some of what we're doing at San Antonio Zoo's Center for Conservation Research. We have all kinds of field activities going on that we haven't gotten into any kind of a discussion of today. We are active in places like Peru and Chile and South China and Japan in the middle of Gulf of Mexico, Mexico, all across the United States, in the Ozarks and across Texas and the Appalachians. We do a lot of work. But to keep that going, we need your help. And this is an incredibly difficult time for the zoo. We need to be able to make sure that we don't just take care of the animals that are in our care, which is our prime objective, but I need to make sure that I take care of the people on my team and that we take care of the entire zoo team that's here every day, making sure that the needs of the animals are covered. So I'm asking you to help, and any amount helps. We really need it right now, and we need to be able to hunker down and make it through whatever COVID-19 decides to throw at us. But rest assured, the teams that are here are dedicated and focused on the best possible care of the animals that are here in our facilities. We really need you, though, to step up and help us get through this time. Thank you so much for your time here today.